There is a natural tendency when you see anybody, when you meet anybody that's not in your immediate group, to put them into a slot. Either it's a slot above or it's in a slot below. We do that all the time. So I don't think there is a single human being on this planet that isn't to some extent classist or racist or whatever you want to call it. Many pretend not to be. But deep down, we all make fun of other people. We all try to feel superior by putting down someone else. And in India, every community has jokes about the other community. Every community. Everyone has a nickname. They're the good Jews and the Madrasis and the Saudis and the Bongs and the Ghats and the, Jats and the, everything is derogatory. Oh, you're talking like a Jat. You're behaving like a Jat, meaning it's, you're not cultured enough. In India, we all look down on everybody else, at least. It's true. It's true. I thought it'd be different when I came to America. Land of the free, right? Land of the free. But it's here. It's insidious. It's insidious. When one race completely obliterates another in order to take their land, there is karma. There is group karma. When you treat human beings like beasts of burden, like no better than animals and donkeys, I think you treat animals even better. Not mindful how they live, how they die. Not allowing them to read, not allowing them to think, making them work from dawn to dusk, tearing their backs open with your cat o' nine tails, publicly stringing children up. Not one Hitler. We talk a lot about Hitler in Europe. Very bad man, killed 6 million Jews. There were millions of Hitlers living in this country. Every plantation had its own Hitler. And the earth is soaked with the blood from the toil of the slaves. And their toil was profit for the white man. And they wanted to keep it that way. They lived every day in fear that there would be a black uprising. And if there was even the slightest hint of a rebellion, it was put down with such ferocity. Young boys were taught to lynch. In South Carolina, I'm reading the Underground Railroad. There was a road called the Freedom Trail where hundreds were lynched on the way. And people watch this. When there is no public apology for absolutely demeaning behavior, inhuman behavior, when there is no acknowledgement that you have treated another human being less than what you should, it becomes a nation divided. You have to acknowledge what you have done at every turn and not slip it under the rug. It exists insidiously because even today the white man thinks he's superior to the black. And I don't know if the Irish Americans think they're superior to the German Americans, or the Italian Americans think they're better than the Boston Brahmins. We have our classes, we have your classes here. You have your race here. And it all stems from a fear of losing their own money. This entire society is raised on greed. My stuff before anybody else's. I take care of mine. This is my land. Doesn't matter that the Indians have been sitting on that land for years. Decimate them. Once you decimate them, then it's yours. And that hasn't changed. They will fill their pockets. They don't want to share it with others. They don't want the poor to benefit. You overhear conversations in supermarkets, in gyms. Oh, these undocumented immigrants just walking into hospitals and being treated for free, 50,000, and we have to pay the taxes. But shouldn't every human being have free health care? Shouldn't that be a basic right? Why would you only allow a rich person with money the benefit of living while the poor person has to just die because he can't afford to go to a hospital? The differences in this society are so inherent, but they all stem from something internal. It's all about me. It's all about my ego, my money. You see it all around. I don't care what happens to anything else. I don't care if they don't get a tax break. I must get my 30 trillion or 40 trillion in a tax break so I can go on, buy my yacht and my... But if you don't care about the poor, the divide will become so huge that one day there will be a revolution. That is how all over the world, in Russia, in France. When is there a revolution? When there's too much of a difference between the way one side thinks and another side. And then it all comes together in a nationalist sphere, my country, my new country, do everything for the country. And that goes on for a while. But because of that insidious greed and that self-seeking nature of most human beings, the divide comes again. As long as people don't believe in that one consciousness, that the divine light in me is the divine light in everyone else, as long as you see the other person as not being what I am, it's going to be a problem. Even when you see people talking or making comments that are different from yours, you have to train yourself to think that it's okay. It's okay. There can be differences in opinion. They've had a different background. They've had a different culture. And as long as you increase your sense of belonging and your sense of acceptance, you find that it doesn't bother you anymore, that you're more accepting of others. I am different, and I am good, and I need the money. As long as it's I. This is going to be there in every society. From the smallest country in Africa, you cannot eradicate racism. Because it's a natural tendency to establish your power over others. And you establish your power because of your own sense of inferiority. You fear for your own safety, you fear for your survival. And that is the root cause of the problem in this country. There is so much of goodness. I look to uplift the goodness and the cohesiveness that when I find it. We create our own little bubbles of happiness, right? You don't get involved in circles of hate. You don't react to make situations worse than it is. You diffuse situations. You react with compassion. You see where they're coming from. And then little by little, you hope that that circle of love increases. That circle of belonging increases. And that's how you build bridges across the aisle. Communities don't come together by building walls. And the richer people get, the more they want to keep the wealth to themselves, and the bigger and taller the walls become between them and the rest. It's not about how much money you have. You're going to leave it all behind. And God knows who's going to do what with all of that money that you did so much to say, that you hurt so many people to get, that you went so low that you will never be able to face yourself when you have to, and we all have to. We all have to face our demons at some point or the other. Either in a trial here on earth or in a trial up there. Never think that you are above racism or prejudice. Never think that racism the other people have. Other people do. Every one of us has it in us. And in every day, in all of your undertakings, in all of your relations, check your own reactions. Check how you react. See how you're thinking. You may not say it, someone else might say it. You may not act on it, someone else might act on it. But in your heads, there are these thoughts that have been taught to you by your parents, by your sisters, by your mothers, by your family. I don't know if you can find one person who really doesn't see any color, who really doesn't see any differences. That is the one enlightened Buddha, and we'll continually look for him. But in the meantime, think of building bridges. Think of reaching out to other communities. Think of understanding where they come from. Because that's the only way you can come face to face with your own prejudice. You cannot control anyone else's views or change how they think, but you can certainly control your own. And here, I'm not interested in telling the world how to live. I'm only interested in telling those who want to listen how they can change themselves, how they can adapt, how they can face their own prejudices head on. We don't want to accept it. We don't want to accept it. We don't want to acknowledge it. Just like this country never wants to acknowledge, all the brutality that went before. Whether it's a person, a group, a country, a nation, or the entire world, all of humanity, we don't want to acknowledge it. It's the same thing. Whether it's one consciousness, whether it's been reflected in you or the entire world. Whatever's going on in your head is going on in 1 million people's heads. You take care of your own. You face your own demons. You see who you hate. You see who you look down on. You see who you feel disdainful about. And build bridges. Reach out to them. Break those shackles of prejudice. Om Namah Shivaya.